Hi and welcome to the first episode of the virtual O-Gauge exhibition. Hi everyone and welcome back to Newton Grove. Now in my last video I spoke about the idea of doing a virtual O-Gauge exhibition, and it seems like a lot of people were very eager to actually be a part of that, so thank you to everybody who emailed in straight away, and please keep those emails coming in. I'd love to see what you are all building or have built in O-Gauge, no matter where you are in the world. Standard gauge, narrow gauge, whatever it might be. And that's a good thing with O-Gauge. O-Gauge is defined as so many things. It's 7mm to the foot. In America, it's 1:48. It doesn't need to be British O-Gauge. It can be American, Canadian, British, Australian, anything you want, so long as it's O-Gauge, broad gauge, standard gauge, or narrow gauge, so long as it is O-Gauge in some way. O16.5, ON30, NG7, Scale 7, whatever the case may be. If you'd like to showcase your O-Gauge work or O-Scale work, then please send an email to the email address on screen for the next episodes of the virtual exhibition. Now, some of the layouts that came through were absolutely fantastic, and a lot of people since the last video have been saying to me, well, it's all very well and good, Jonathan, getting into O-Gauge from 00, but I haven't got the space for it. Now, I understand if you want to run, for example, big mainline locomotives with mainline trains hauling 10 coaches or 40 wagons, then yes, O-Gauge requires a lot of space. You either need to have a massive barn, a huge garage, or go into the garden, or at least be a part of a club. But then of course there are what is called micro layouts, and that brings me to our first layout here of the virtual exhibition, which is only in a space of 4 foot by 1 foot, submitted by Andrew Hunt, and it's called Commercial Road. Andrew said to me the layout is still very much a work in progress, but it's based on the industrial routes in and around the Lowestoft area, set around 1964, and at the moment he uses a Dapol Sentinel, which has been modified to portray one that was used at the local sleeper works, but it needs a spark arrestor fitting still. As I said, the layout is only a 4 foot by 1 foot shunting layout, and it's currently undergoing a new extension. And you can see some of the photographs here, even the ones that are shot in low light. O-Gauge has just got this wonderful presence, and you can see there the Sentinel with the wagon behind the fencing, you got the van. I love the lighting, I love the mood to everything here, and it really just goes to show in 4 foot by 1 foot, it's not a huge space. You really can put in a lot of detail. He's clearly only got one set of points over there, and that's all you need. 2 tracks, some low relief buildings, you've got the loading gauge, you've got some fencing, you've got the house or cottage that separates the back scene to the fiddle yard. It really looks like a wonderful little layout. Now, as he said, it is a work in progress, but it just goes to prove what you can do in such a small space. 4 foot by 1 foot with maybe a small cassette fiddle yard at the very end. So, hey, maybe you're inspired to get into O-Gauge and do something very similar yourself. The next layout comes from Andy Rycroft, who lives all the way over in Thailand, so it's good to see that there are O-Gauge modelers all around the world. And he is building a model of the Llangollen Railway in Wales. He said that he chose the Llangollen because as a child in the mid-1970s, he used to visit the railway several times with his father, and he's always wanted to build it. He says that he's been working on the railway for at least 2 years on and off, and he says that he's hoping to have the platforms paved by next year. Now, he has set the layout, which is of course based in North Wales, during the 1920s and 30s. And looking at the photographs over here, yes, of course we can see it's a work in progress. That's a good thing with this virtual exhibition. You don't actually need to submit a fully completed model. It can be a locomotive that you're building, or a coach, or a wagon, or a diorama, or a layout. It doesn't need to be finished. It can just be under construction to some point, so feel free to send in whatever you want. So Andy, thank you so much for sending that in, and look, I'd love to see more progress on your layout, so make sure in about a year's time, when you've done a bit more work to it, send it through again for one of the other episodes of the O-Gauge virtual exhibition. The next layout is a model of Cardiff Canton, shared by an amazing modeler called Stephen Fay. Now, I first learned of Stephen, I think it was about 2014, 2015, when he built his original Cardiff Canton on a 6x2 board, all in O-Gauge, and it was based upon the locomotive shed at Canton. And I was blown away by the level of detail and what you could achieve in such a small space in such a large scale, it inspired me to build what has become Newton Grove, which of course has been in magazines, it's been exhibited here in the UK, and of course it's now leading me on to my bigger projects. But Stephen is building what he's classifying as Canton Mark II. Now at the moment the layout is only 6 foot by 3 foot, however he's extending that to 14 foot by 3 foot eventually, plus a 7 foot by 18 inch section down one side. Stephen has got a fantastic collection of Western region locomotives. Some of course are the British Railway standards, which were based around the Western region, and the level of detail on this model is already looking fantastic. And you can see a lot more of his work on Facebook. The link is over here on the video. Definitely follow the page. He really is doing the most amazing job, and he is a absolutely sensational modeler. And if his first Cardiff Canton is anything to go on as far as the quality, then I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with Canton Mark II. The next layout comes in from Duncan Hurst, and the layout is called Offerston Quay. Now, Duncan has submitted this video to me, made by Pat's Trains UK 1, and it was shot at the SMRE exhibition in Sheffield in March 2025. So a big shout out, make sure you go off and follow Pat's Trains UK on YouTube. Offerston Quay depicts a northern town somewhere in the Sheffield area on the Midland region in 1962. A small goods yard serves an almost disused canal wharf, while a typical ex-Midland station above sees a surprising number of DMUs and push-pull passenger trains. The scenic section of the layout is 9 foot by 2 foot 6, which once again is not massive in O gauge, and you really can see just how much can fit into such a small space. It's DCC controlled, it looks absolutely fantastic, and it's a really, really lovely layout. One of the things that I quite like is that it's multi-level, so you've got the wonderful shunting puzzle, like an Inglenook shunting puzzle down below, but then you've got that, I think it's a double track main line at the top. So as he said, you can have that busy commuter service up the top, the push-pull trains and the DMUs. Well, there's a lot of shunting going on below, and I think that is a wonderful layout and quite inspirational. Duncan, thank you so much for submitting that to me. The next layout is Castlebank Sidings by Andy Pannett. Now, I've actually shot this layout for Hornby magazine, but to date, as I'm filming this right now in October 2025, it hasn't been published just yet. So I'm looking forward to that, and you need to look out for it too in the pages of Hornby magazine in the future. It really is spectacular. But these photographs here were supplied by Andy. Castlebank Sidings is only 8 foot long by 2 foot wide, and it has a 6 foot fiddle yard. And as you can see over here, there is so much detail that is packed into this space. Andy loves to have a vast array of locomotives, which he says here are mostly 08s, Class 20s, 25s, 26s, 37s, 40s, 45, a 121, and also a Wickham trolley. He says if it feels like working. And as you can see here, the level of detail that he has put into this model is absolutely fantastic. It really is. There are so many wonderful little cameo scenes over here. For example, like the British Rail van and the forklift and the chap sitting on the pallets, the two other men having a conversation near the hut next to the forklift, and also that wonderful billboard which is clearly getting weather worn and is starting to peel off, the canal basin, the bridge, the graffiti. There's all these wonderful little cameo scenes, and it really does make the layout look absolutely fantastic. And as I said, I've shot this layout for the magazine. I'm really looking forward to showcasing that to you in with my take on it. It really is wonderful, and it's also been at exhibitions around the UK. I highly recommend having a look at it. And once again, it's a small layout, 8 foot long, 2 foot wide. It packs down, and you can take it round. It just goes to show what you really can do in O gauge in a relatively small space. In fact, all the layouts I'm showing to you today do the very same thing. So hopefully this inspires you to either get into O gauge, have a go yourself, or if you are an O gauge modeler thinking, I haven't got the space, like I said, micro layout, 4 foot by 1 foot, or 8 by 2, break it down. You really can do so much in O gauge in a small space. The last layout I want to show to you, it's not actually a layout as such, it's a diorama. It's a diorama that I personally built for the Key Model World Diorama Challenge, which I called Cashmore Yard. And you can see here from the photographs, what I have done is I have basically based my model on photographs of Cashmores during the very sad years when they were cutting up hundreds and hundreds of steam locomotives. It's a really sad sight. When I first saw photographs of Cashmores, it really, well, it broke my heart, really, if I'm honest. But when it came to wanting to do a diorama challenge, for whatever reason, I was inspired. I was so lucky because Ellis Clark Trains had a whole bunch of Black 5 spares from the tooling and sampling stages, which they donated to me for the project. And I used the scale model scenery baseboards, the large baseboards, which are 2 foot long by 18 inches wide. And it just goes to prove over here what you can do from a diorama point of view with all that detail in O gauge in a very, very small space. If I wanted to, if I really wanted to, I could have made it a working layout with a small little cassette at the very end. But as I said, I made that for the Key Model World Hobby Magazine Diorama Challenge, and you can watch that video on YouTube. I will link it up above and at the end of this video as well. So that brings me now to the end of episode 1 for the O gauge virtual exhibition. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing the layouts on offer, and hopefully, as I said, some of these inspire you to have a go yourself at either a small little layout, a larger layout, or just get into O gauge yourself. Now, thank you to everybody who submitted all their content. For people who have submitted that weren't in episode number 1, don't worry, you'll be in episode 2 or 3. I do plan on doing a lot more of these. And if you're watching anywhere in the world and you model, whether it be narrow gauge, O gauge, or standard gauge, or whatever it might be, as long as it's O scale, 7mm of some kind, I would love to showcase your work to the world. It could be a locomotive or wagon or coach kit that you have built or a building. It could be a layout that you've built or building. Whatever it is, I would like to show the world what you're doing in this wonderful hobby and this fantastic scale of O gauge. So please send any submissions, photographs and video with some information to the email address on screen, and I would love to feature you in the future. In the meantime, do me a favor, like the video, please subscribe if you haven't, check out the Patreon link. I really appreciate all the people who are supporting the channel, and you can also find the link to Rails of Sheffield down below because they do stock some fantastic O gauge. Right, that's enough for me. I look forward to showing you more O gauge very soon. Oh, and you're watching this now on Saturday the 11th of October, and if you're coming to the Great Electric Train Show at Milton Keynes and you see me over there, come and say hi. I'm happy to talk to you about O gauge, Hobby Magazine and anything in between. If you're not a Gets, I will see you next time on Newton Grove.